Hello, this is Michael Tillinger, and welcome to a second version of the introduction to the frequently asked questions about one small town, Ubuntu, and the system of contributionism. Let's take this through from a slightly different perspective so that we can maybe answer a few more questions and actually list the frequently asked questions that I've encountered over the last 16 years from the people around the world. First of all, let me remind you that you can go onto our Ubuntu Planet website, which is also known as onesmalltown.org. There are various URLs that take you to the same website, so it's ubuntuplanet.org or onesmalltown.org or ubuntucontributionism.org. They all land up on the same website URL. But onesmalltown.org is probably the easiest and the simplest because that's what we're talking about here. So first of all, once we implement the system of contributionism and the philosophy of one small town, everything changes. Everything changes for the better. It's inevitable. It has to change, and it will change, because the fundamental structure of how our town operates, how we cooperate, how we collaborate, how we work together to reach a common purpose of abundance and prosperity changes dramatically from the normal capitalist social structure system that we have of dog eat dog. We compete against each other in our towns. Family members compete against each other in business. And that just causes destruction and decay of certain businesses while others flourish and succeed. That is not a solution or a recipe for success. That is a recipe for disaster. So the system of capitalism and competition is possibly one of the most evil things that's ever been implanted in our minds, because many of us believe that competition is the mother of invention. Without competition there'd be no progress. That is in fact completely the opposite. Cooperation and collaboration leads to success, leads to prosperity, and leads to abundance for everyone. And it also leads to peace and harmony and unity. Otherwise, competition leads constantly to conflict, to warfare, to exploitation, and we know what the world looks like today. Contributionism stimulates all sectors of our community. Every single thing that we do as the human race is touched by the system of contributionism. Where we live, how we build our homes, arts, culture, recreation, what food we grow, what tools we use and how we use those tools, how we care for the elderly, and what systems we've put in place to take care of our elderly and the aged and the sick. The technology we use, the transport systems, healthcare, hospitals, education, skills and training, what research we do and the laboratories we build, the materials and manufacturing that we participate in, law and order, and every other aspect of our society. In essence, our towns become strong competitors to any large corporation. Keep in mind that the fundamental motto of the contributionism system and the one small town plan of action is that we use the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation. We don't fight the system, we don't try and oppose the system, because that has not worked. We know for thousands of years people have tried to oppose the system, try and resist the governments, resist the banks, resist corporations, resist monopolies. And we realize that that doesn't work, because the current monetary and economic system has been put in place by those people that control it around the world. It's been put in place for the one specific purpose, is to crush and destroy anyone that stands up to rise to oppose it. So we cannot beat them at their own game. They, the global elite, whatever you want to call them, the global bankers, the global international banking cabal, they control everything through the monetary system, the socio-economic structures that they impose on our governments and the central banking. It is impossible to beat them at their own game. But what we can do is use their tools that they've created, use those same very tools to change and benefit from the system, so we can ultimately change a system without opposing it. And that's in essence what we're doing. So the moment we bring in the contributionist philosophy and launch a one small town model, that town, in essence, becomes a fierce competitor to any large multinational corporation. Now, how can I say that? Because if you look and study international corporations, and I'm talking corporations that have 5,000 employees or more, but I based this model on companies that have 5,000 employees. If you go and do your own research, and I recommend you go and do your own research so you know that this is true and I'm not just making this up. When you look at companies that have 5,000 employees or more, they generate on average or at least $1 billion turnover per annum. Listen to what I'm saying here. Corporations with 5,000 employees or more generate on average $1 billion per annum or more, much more. Some corporations generate up to $20 billion per annum. All depends what industries they're in. Now, keep in mind that we're turning our town into a cooperative model where we cooperate, collaborate. So in essence, our town becomes a diverse cooperative corporation where the members of the community are the shareholders and the labor force of that corporation. So any town with 10,000 people or more becomes a fierce competitor to corporations around the world that have around 5,000 employees and generate vast amounts of money. So the takeout from what I'm sharing with you is that our towns of 10,000 people, I'm using 10,000 because it's an even round number and one can do the numbers quickly in your head, towns of 10,000 people or more, because we have the cheap and free labor force, because everybody contributes 3 hours per week, that means all the different industries that we get involved in, because our cooperative business of our town, using the tools of enslavement as tools of liberation, we'll have many factors, many sectors. We'll be growing food, doing technology, building computers, doing healthcare, new education, engineering, etc., etc. We'll start many, many businesses, cooperative businesses that all fall under the one small town model, one small town umbrella. So all the members of our town and society benefit from the income of what we do. That means that our town of 10,000 people has the potential of generating $1 billion or more per annum turnover. But the profit margins for our town will be far larger than the profit margins of these large corporations. Why? Because we have this free cooperative labor force where everyone in our town is a proud participant and a proud competitor, a proud contributor to the success of every business that we start for our town and our community. This is such a spectacular, simple model that it boggles my mind why this has not happened before. And the only reason this has not happened is because we, the people, have literally become our own worst enemies. We can't imagine that through simple cooperation, collaboration, we can reach so much success. And in many other presentations that I've done, I compare our bodies to the success story of the trillions of cells in our bodies cooperating and collaborating, working together for the greatest benefit of the body. So the moment we start acting like the cells in our bodies, we will reach success and find unity, harmony, abundance, and prosperity. So what does contributionism do for our society and our community? It is a solution for all our problems. Through this very simple implementation, we find simple solutions for every single problem we face as a community and as global society. So let's ask the question, how many problems do we face in the world today? Well, there are millions of problems. Everywhere we look, there's a problem. You can see municipalities and cities falling apart. Food, water, environmental decay. The governments and municipalities and the mayors simply cannot deal with the needs and the demands of the upkeep of everything that needs to be managed. Fixing the roads, maintenance of our towns and facilities, education and healthcare. We see the decay wherever we go around the world. Migration, human trafficking, conflict and warfare, drugs, and the care for elderly. These are just a few examples of the problems that we face. There are millions and millions of problems. And somehow the people that we put in charge, the people that we appoint as our representatives and our leaders, the politicians that are supposed to fix all this on our behalf, they cannot find solutions for these problems. And I bet you if you ask your child or the school teacher or your granny, they'll probably come up with a solution very quickly to any of these problems. And you realize when you start addressing these problems, you probably already know it. The solutions are simple. But the systems, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the flow of money and the funding always become the hurdle and the obstacles to all these problems that we face that should be solved very easily. So, what we in essence do by introducing the contributionism model and the one small town plan of action, we will find solutions for every single problem we face as the human race. And what I find fascinating is that since 2005 that I've been promoting this philosophy of one small town, I found that there are 13 frequently asked questions, and we're going to go through these very shortly. These questions come in all forms and shapes, and in essence they all boil down to about 13 frequently asked questions. And so can you imagine in a world of capitalism and dog eat dog and competition, the current social structure, we face millions of problems that we seemingly cannot solve, and yet when we talk about a contributionist community, a one small town community, hundreds of thousands of people come up with the same number of questions, these 13 frequently asked questions. Even if it's 100 questions, even if it's 1,000 questions or problems that people can't figure out how we're going to solve, it is already a great improvement on facing millions of problems in the capitalist model, in the social structure we have today, as opposed to the contributionist model. So in essence, if we can solve 13 problems that people keep coming up with, or frequently asked questions, then we've solved the problems of the world. And that's the beautiful side of this, when you really come at it from the simplistic perspective that everything should always be simple, everything should always be easy, not complicated, just like in maths and science. Whenever something is too complicated, you know we're going about it the wrong way. And that's what we're doing here. We're simplifying things, breaking it down to its fundamental needs that we as people and society and humanity need, solving the problems with ease and as simply and as easily as we possibly can. So let's go through these 13 frequently asked questions. There actually are 29 questions in this section, just to show you the different ways that people keep asking the same question, just from a different perspective. Now, these are real questions that I've received, since 2005 from thousands and thousands, probably more than 100,000 questions that I've faced from people either through emails or in live presentations or workshops. So let's start here. First one. What if I don't want to participate? Is it compulsory? Who's going to shovel the crap? I'll just sit on my ass and do nothing. If everything is free, I want 50 Ferraris and 20 mansions. Are we going back to the Dark Ages? How are we going to pay for things? Is this a lawless society? Who's going to make the rules? Why should I do something that I don't like? What about human nature? People are lazy and people are cruel and people are greedy. Why should I give up all the things I have worked for so hard? Why should I give you something if I get nothing in return? If I give you something of value, what am I going to get in return? Is this not just another form of communism? What about human nature and the fact that people want to constantly better themselves and improve themselves? What about progress and advancement and technology? Does this mean we're going to regress and go backwards? If there's no money, how are we going to get things? Why would I want to slave away all day for free? Who's going to provide the food? What will happen with education? How are we going to get electricity? Is this not a case of taking from the rich and giving to the poor? Why don't we rather focus on improving the economy and alleviating poverty so that everyone has sufficient access to food and other things? Does this not mean a degradation of our lifestyle? Is this not a free-for-all at a lawless society where everyone can do what they want? If everything is free, can I go to your house and take whatever I want? What happens to the law and police and security? What about those whose education and skills are higher than those of others? Is their time not more valuable? What about the elderly and taking care of the people with disabilities? You can see from these questions that it's very much a repetition of the same kind of anxieties and fears that people feel and face in the world around us today. Security, food, taking care of the elderly, technology, advancement, going back to the dark ages, living in caves, and you can see from these questions as well that people ask these questions without actually having either read the book or watched the videos. So they shoot from the hip and ask the questions when the answers are right in front of them. Just watch the videos, the One Small Town implementation videos, and you already know the answers to many of these questions, because many of these questions come from a completely incorrect assumption or an incorrect conclusion that people have reached by just picking up little pieces here and there and reaching their own conclusion about what it is that we're going to do or trying to do. So the other important thing to recognize before we end here is that the contributionism system and the One Small Town model is a self-correcting system. We always find solutions that are best for the entire community, that they never ever are detrimental to sectors of the society or sectors of our community. Because the answers and the solutions to the problems that we face will come from the people in the community. The people will find the solutions that benefit the entire community, not just the rich or the elite or the powerful or the politicians, while they enslave the rest of the people, because that's currently the system that we face today. And the moment we implement One Small Town and the contributionism system, you'll find how easily these solutions are found and implemented in our communities as we appoint the Council of Elders that works hand in hand, or as the advisory body to the mayor and the politically appointed council, because the people, then becomes the voice of the people that controls the businesses. Now, this is the key thing. Keep in mind that the mayor and the council, the appointed mayor and the council, really become administrators on the legal and political platform on behalf of the Council of Elders and the Community Council of the people that actually represents the people, the true people of the community, not the politicians. Because the people of the community are the shareholders and the owners of the businesses. So they then have a far bigger influence over the mayor and the politically appointed council. This is such a simple structure. It boggles the mind, once again, that this has never happened before. But now we know why it's not happened, and we are busy putting this in place. In essence, we can say with absolute confidence, contributionism is a system that promotes success and achievement on every possible level, in every sector of human endeavor. Capitalism in the current system is really fatally skewed towards favoring the few, towards favoring the elite, favoring the wealthy and the rich and the privileged. Because think about it, every day 7 billion or more people wake up and they want to do something. They want to improve themselves, better themselves, build a home, get a better car, create something, invent something, plant something, grow something. There are so many millions and billions of people that every day want to achieve something and do something good, generally to improve their life and their family's life, and many people do it for their community. And very few people, very few of these 7 billion or more people ever succeed in achieving their goals. Now, in a world where so many people, overwhelming majority of people alive in the world, want to do something good. It might not always be altruistic or for the betterment or uplifting their community, but it's something that they want to do or create or improve or invent. Very few of these people succeed. That tells us that there's some sort of a mechanism that's been put in place to stop that happening, to prevent that from happening. And that system is called capitalism. So from a statistical probability, it's very obvious that the system that's been imposed on us, the global financial economic system that works through the governments, through the central banks, has been created to stop people from achieving their goals. We're going to change that with one small town and with a system of contributionism. Not by fighting it, by using those tools of enslavement as tools of liberation. And that, my friends, is one of the most beautiful statements and thoughts that I have ever come across. It is true poetic justice in this global society of oppression, exploitation, economic slavery. We have the tools to change it without ever opposing anyone, opposing the system, getting involved in violence, opposition, or conflict. We can do this very, very simply. So it's a system that promotes success and achievement on every imaginable level. And on that note, I'm ending this slightly different introduction to the One Small Town and Contributionism Plan of Action and to the frequently asked questions. And now we're going to get on with actually addressing each and every question on its own and going through it and how simply we can solve those problems that we face as the human race. Until later, this is Michael Tellinger.